Going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam back at you. It's hashtag homeless day 107. And yeah, so you can see I got my hair cut yesterday. That came through. And I have a few things to talk about today. I'm sitting in the stairwell of a parking garage because it's pouring rain outside on and off. And it's supposed to be like this all day today, or at least until, from what I can see, until sometime in the afternoon. And the library doesn't open for another hour and a half, so if I can get this video done, that opens me up to do a lot more stuff today. And yeah, like I said, I had a really busy day yesterday. Already talked about going to social services, and you got to see for yourselves how the homeless people that fill this town react if they think that you have a camera pointed at them, as they stand in front of the camera to tell you that they don't want to be on camera. And it would be interesting, and I know I could get some people to sit down and talk about what it's like, because I'm surrounded by people at the shelter, and a lot of those people would probably be fine with doing it. But right now, I have no desire for conflict or getting into fights with people, as confrontational as I can be sometimes. But right now, I just want to lay low and get my ducks in a row and get down to Texas. Like I said, I got my hair cut yesterday, and this town is full of salons and barbershops. There's almost a salon or a barbershop on every block. But it was hard. It was really hard to find a place that would even answer their phone, let alone schedule an appointment for me on the same day. But I made it happen. And the best part about it was that the salon was a block away from the library. And it's funny because a good stylist takes about 15 minutes to cut my hair. But a lot of places, they can't get me in for a week or two when you call. I think it's crazy that there's so many places in town to get your hair cut. It blows my mind how hard it is to get a haircut in this town. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. But, I don't have to be here much longer. So, whatever at this point. You can see I'm a little bit more chill about the frustrating things about being in Jamestown, because I know that I don't know the exact day that I'm leaving, but I would say 2 weeks from now, I'll be sitting in Texas doing these videos instead of sitting here. I just need to figure some things out and coordinate how I'm gonna get there. Right now, it's looking like I'm gonna rent a minivan, stop in Pittsburgh, see my kids, pick up a minivan's worth of belongings and things that'll help me when I get down there. And I'm gonna hit the road and do a marathon drive, and I don't know if I'm gonna do the whole 24 hours of driving in one shot. I might find a campground or a campsite in a state park or a national forest, or I'm pretty good at figuring those kinds of things out as I'm, on the fly. And so I definitely want to get at least to somewhere in Tennessee. And I mean, if I could only make it to Kentucky on the first day, I know I have a really awesome campsite that if I go on a weekday, I'm almost positive it would be available, and it would cost me absolutely nothing. But I don't know if that's far enough. I got to look at the map. I got to see what's going on. But Tennessee and Kentucky, that's like the bare minimum for me to make it on the first leg of the trip. But anything beyond Tennessee, between Tennessee and Texas, is kind of new territory for me in terms of where am I going to go camp for free, if that's what I'm going to do. And is I got to make sure I find a place that's accessible by a minivan and not something that you would need a 4-wheel drive pickup or a Jeep to get back to. So anyway, that's that. That's all I got in the news for what the homeless situation is like. Basically, it's about to not be homeless. So awesome. I spent the rest of the day yesterday setting up a web server for hosting various clients' websites, and that went really smooth. I set up the web server and a backup system that I use. It's called version control, and the specific platform for the version control that I use is called GIT, GIT, and that is the standard version control system which 95% of teams use nowadays to basically store your software projects and all the history of all the code that you write. And so what this system will allow me to do is to revert any file in the web application source files to any previous version of said file. So if I were working on a larger team or a larger project, this system makes working on large applications as a team very easy, because it will stop you from being able to step on each other's toes when you're working on the same code together. And you can easily make copies of your code base, modify it, do all kinds of crazy stuff to it, and then it's a graceful way of merging all the work that you do back into the main copy of the application, which they're called branches in the software. In the platform, they're called branches, but it's basically, a branch is just a copy of an existing software application and all the files associated with it. And you can work on a separate copy of it, but then when you're done, the system is intelligent enough to merge what you did back into the main copy and only make the changes that you made to it. And it will also alert you and the team if you are merging changes back into the main copy of the application that conflict with any changes that anybody else made. And that will basically force you to address those conflicts and get together with your teammates and get together with the other developers and decide which code do we keep and which do we throw away, or where do we have to do some manual labor to make sure that the code that this person wrote and the code that I wrote will work together and seamlessly. And so when I was working for for example, when I was working for the company that fired me for not taking the vaccine, I had worked on redesigning the user interface of their web application for about 3 straight months in a complete vacuum, in my own separate branch, or rather copy of the application. And I had to do a lot of work at the same time. 10 or 15 other programmers were working on things and moving the ball forward on their tasks and their projects. So I had to constantly take the code that they wrote every day, every 2 days, in a rare occasion, I might be able to go 3 days, and constantly merge the code that they write into my code, and then look for any files that they were messing with that I'm also messing with. And if I run into that situation, which would happen a handful of times, I would have to look through it with a fine-tooth comb and see what's this person changing, and then I have to make sure that my version of the code, essentially if they're adding new functionality or changing something about how something looks on a page, then I have to address whatever they did in my version of it and make sure that I'm not just throwing away the work that they did. And so I had to do that. I had to make sure that whatever they were adding or changing was compatible and all that stuff, and adjust accordingly. And so I couldn't pass my code back to them until I was completely finished with some really large tasks, or else nothing would work and it would look really broken. It was kind of an all or nothing situation. I had to completely remove and redo the whole underlying code structure of a very poorly written user interface code base. And it wasn't something that could be passed off in small pieces. Like I said, it was basically an all or nothing kind of thing, just to redo the application's header, the navigation bar, the footer, and the middle space of where content might be different from one page to the next. But I had to spend 3 months doing all of this. And then then I would be able to give this back to them, merge it into the main application, and then start refactoring the web application on a page by page or a section by section basis. So by the time I was ready to merge all that code back into the main branch of the application, which means it's basically ready to go live, I had made 435 committed changes ahead of where the branch sat in terms of code. So when my changes come in, there's 435 committed changes. And each one of those changes could be multiple files being changed for each one of those committed changes. And so let's say each commit is some sort of stopping point where you finish a task or you need to work things out, or just take a break or whatever. So it was 435 commits ahead of where the main branch sat, with 274 files that had been changed, along with 12,105 additions and 22,170 deletions. And the only reason I know the exact numbers is because I have screenshots of this as reference in my portfolio. But these additions and deletions, they could be lines of code, they could be individual files. So what I passed back to the developers, they were scared because nobody can test and verify all of that work who's going to review that code, trying to figure out, what are the 22,170 things that got deleted? What are the 12,105 things that were added? So they basically had to cross their fingers and hope for the best. I had worked really closely with the lead programmers while I was doing all of this, so they trusted me and they knew that I knew what I was doing. And we communicated for 3 months. But when I say I worked in a vacuum, no other programmer was touching my code and vice versa. I was taking their code and making sure anything they did during those 3 months would still work. But it was a tedious process. And so this version control tool is what allows you to do all of that work off to the side and then pass it back to a group of people without really having to think about it too much. And when we launched all those changes, when we went live, during the first day we went live, people found 2 bugs. And each of the bugs was a minor user interface glitch that was fixed by adjusting 1 line of code for each glitch. And then we had those fixes in places within an hour or 2. And from there, nobody reported anything other than being happy with the fact that the app worked and it looked better. And so after I handed off this 12,000 additions and 22,000 deletions, they told me I had to take my COVID shot or I'd get fired. And I said, well, good fucking luck with that. And I got to play Xbox games until my last day of the job while they figured out, now somebody has to figure out what these 12,000 additions are and how all this new code works. And, I never really had a chance to show them any of it. So I was like, have fun with that, guys. I'm out. But that's what Git does as a tool. So for my projects that I'm working on right now, I'm building client websites with WordPress, probably using WordPress for most of it's the appropriate software platform for the types of websites that I'm building. There are tons of other content management platforms out there, but the open source version of WordPress is by far the most popular. And that means that there are existing packages and plugins for just about any kind of functionality you would want to add to a website. And you can also retain your source code and your individual files that sit behind the scenes. So that you can customize any detail of your website down to the smallest thing if you know what you're doing. And so for me, since I know how to get under the hood and write code, it's a way for me to undo the version control. Git is a way for me to undo a mistake that I might make if I just need to roll back to a previous version of a file and start over again. And WordPress also becomes a little bit of a mess with the number of updates you'll be making, because WordPress itself, the software, gets updates on a regular basis, and all the plugins that you use and all the themes that you use and all of the pre-written software that plugs into WordPress that makes it, that expands upon it and adds functionality to it, all of these things are getting updated all the time. And so what you want to watch out for is when you update a plugin, for example, and something breaks in your website, you need a way to be able to easily switch back to the previous version of that plugin so that you can just let your website work. And then you can create, like I was saying, you can create a branch of your website, a copy of it, get it up and running, and basically debug it. You can sit there and tinker with it until you figure out what went wrong. And then once you're able to fix whatever it was that broke, you can merge all that stuff back into your main branch and push it up live without having to disrupt and make your live website go down for a period of time. So that just becomes handy. And the version control also allows you to have a separate copy of everything in your source code. And I purposely host my repository. It's called a repository. I host the repository on a different platform than the website is hosted on. So because in the prepper community, they say 1 is none and 2 is 1. If something happens to the platform where I'm hosting the website, and that company will not be able to hold my code and data for ransom, is I have it all backed up on a totally different platform, and I could have a new website set up on a different web host within less than a day. So think about it in terms of all the censorship and stuff that's going on. If you have a pretty robust website and you've got lots of content, you've got a database full of, let's say you have a blog and it's a really popular blog and you've got tens of thousands of people coming to view your blog every day, but it's a political blog, it's free speech. And let's say your web hosting company says, you're done, and shuts you off. They can shut you off in the blink of an eye. You go to log into your website's gone. You go to your source code and see if you can download everything. It's gone, you're locked out. They deleted everything, they got rid of it, and they told you to go pound sand. Well, if you have all of your code and your database backed up in a separate platform on a separate web server from a separate company, it's still going to be an inconvenience, but you're still going to be able to get all your code back and your database is there waiting for you, and all you're going to have to do is set up a new web hosting with a new web hosting company and push all that stuff back up, probably make a few tweaks here and there, change where your domain points to and all that kind of stuff, and you're back up and running. That's another thing that I recommend to people is don't keep your domain name registered with the same company that you host your website with. Because once again, if your web host, especially if you have a controversial website that people might want to shut down on you, if your web hosting company holds your website, your source code, your domain name, and all your files and your version control repository, when they decide to shut you off, you're done. You're absolutely finished. And unless you have stuff backed up and saved on a local computer, you're screwed. And you might have to go start everything over from scratch. But if you keep your domain name on one platform, your code repository on a separate platform, and your it's very loud in here, very loud. It's ridiculously loud in this, as you can hear. So it's hard to think. But if you keep your domain name on one platform, your web hosting on a separate platform with a separate company, and your code repository on a separate company with a separate platform and a separate account, then that makes it a hell of a lot harder for the man, if you will, to shut you down. And so it was that strategy that saved my ass when I got arrested. when I was arrested, I had a pretty large photography website with a store built in. And because I was in jail and prison, I couldn't pay my web hosting bills and all the other bills that went along with it, like the domain name renewals and the secure socket layer SSL certificates and all of that stuff, and I lost everything. But I didn't lose the code because it was held on another shall be unnamed web server as a code repository, and it was sitting there waiting for me when I got home from prison, and all I had to do was download it. And not only was I able to download my source code back to my own computer, I was able to download every single version of every single file that I had ever modified on that website and every change that I had ever made to it. So I could roll back the website back to the way it looked on the first day it launched. Or I could launch it the way it looked 2 years, 3 years after I launched it. And so because I have every single change in a historical log that I can roll back to, and so I was able to download that in 10 minutes after I got home from prison, and I had it all back. It's all in my possession now and stored on a repository like that. And so when I push that photography website back up to a live web server, it's just going to be a matter of pushing some files around and making some changes instead of starting from scratch. And so I'll be relaunching that sometime in the not so distant future to replace the website that's at litgood.com right now. But I need, like I said, I need to do some work to it beforehand, and I'm building 4 other websites right now, possibly 5 more websites. So right now my work is all of a sudden cut out for me. If everything goes according to plan over the next week, I'll be working on 6 website builds, running a YouTube channel, building out a photography store, shooting, editing video, shooting, processing, and editing photography and getting that published, working on publishing my photography on stock photo websites for sale, and I think there's like 6 to 10 other things that I'm not even thinking of right now, including teaching photography and photo editing classes online, and also trying to figure out how to start a program where I can bring bicycles to the homeless. So needless to say, I'm never going to be bored. I'm never going to be bored for the rest of my life, that's for sure. And on top of all those things, I'm still looking for another software design gig that would be a steady paycheck to help me get on my feet. But if I'm locked out of that for the rest of my life to where I can never get a job in another software company, then I'm working on 6 other streams of income to help me get back on my feet instead. And if one of those streams of income happens to be working in a fast food joint or some sort of store, who knows what. When I get to Texas, I'll have to start figuring that out. But, whatever it takes to make things happen is what I'm going to do. But I would much rather do the things that I'm good at, that I've been doing for the last 30 years of my life, than to go work at a job that sucks. I mean, who wouldn't? So, that's what I worked on all day yesterday and into the night. I was a tad rusty on a couple of these tasks, and I had to do a little bit of brushing up and read some tech notes. But it all went really smooth, and I was actually surprised that I met all my goals for the night because I really didn't think I was going to when I got started. Another thing I discovered, the new cable that I bought for the MacBook Pro, the charge cable, works awesome. Not a single issue. Have not had my battery drop at all as I'm working on things and pushing, heavy files around. So I was just about to go get a high capacity, or whatever you call it, a fast charger for my cell phone. Because ever since I became homeless, the charger that I'm using for my cell phone charges my phone pretty slowly. And so I was going to go get a higher capacity charger, like a Samsung charger for their modern phones or something like that, that would charge my phone in half the time. And it turns out I already had one, but I was using the wrong cable. I swapped cables, and I decided to take this one charger that I have that I've been using for 3 months. And I swapped a cable and I tried a different cable, and when I plugged that cable into the charger in my phone, all of a sudden my phone said now it's charging rapidly, and now my phone's charging in less than half the time it was taken before. And so once again, the cables, these devices, they can be really picky about the cables that you use. And so that's something you should always check out especially when you're having either charging issues where things are charging slower than you think they should, or if you have data issues where you plug your phone into your computer and your computer doesn't recognize it, or you plug a device into your computer and your computer doesn't recognize the device, or one of those kinds of issues. You'd be amazed at how many times swapping the cable for another cable that looks identical to the cable you were using, sometimes just changing the cable fixes all your problems. And so not every USB cable is the same. Not every HDMI cable are the same. Even though they have the same connectors, some USB cables are designed to only carry power and not carry data. But even if it's a USB cable that's meant to carry power and data, or just power, it might only carry a certain amount of power and not allow more than a certain amount of wattage to go through the line. And so you could use an older cable that you have laying around with a newer charger, and your phone won't charge as fast as it would if you just switched the cable to a newer cable. So devices are picky. And I've been having this issue with my phone for months. And I had the cable sitting right next to me the whole time, and all I had to do was try this other cable just one time, and I would have realized that. But at least I didn't go to the store and buy a fast charger for $20 or whatever it was going to cost. Every time I picked one up at a store, I would just put it back down and say, nah, I'm good. I don't need to spend $20 right now. I'm being really stingy with spending money right now. And so discovering that I already have the fast charger, I just didn't have the fast cable. That was a pretty cool thing to discover yesterday. But once again, I spent all day working on stuff yesterday, and I'm a lot farther behind on responding to your comments. I did take a break here and there throughout the day, but the number of comments that I haven't responded to keeps increasing and increasing now over the last few days because you're just leaving too many comments. But, don't let me stop you. I enjoy reading them all. But if you ever want to talk, one-on-one, if you've got something that you're interested in talking about in terms of a project, or you just want to reach out and say hi, I'm easy to reach via email or whatever. The contact form, when you go to litgood.com, right at the top corner of the website, there's a link to a contact form. If you fill out that contact form, it'll send it straight to my email, and I'm pretty good at getting back to people on that. I do have a couple of people I need to respond to that came in this week, and I've been a little bit busy right now with all of this stuff. But like I said, I'm easy to reach if you ever want to have a conversation about your marketing needs, about say you have a website you're interested in building, you own a business. If you own a business and you just need help, you need help getting word out there, you need help. Let's say you own a business and you've been doing it for a while and you still don't have a website, and maybe you went to Squarespace or GoDaddy or something like that and wanted to build it yourself, and you realized, even though they make this easy in the sense that you don't have to know how to write code, you're still going to have to learn how to use their tools and how to use their platform. And then you're going to run into the situation where with those kind of cookie cutter template websites, you won't be able to customize anything the way you want it to be. You're basically going to be locked into whatever their template and whatever their system allows you to do. And so that's the point in time where you might want to give someone like me a call, or whoever, and start talking about, what are the options here if I want to be hands off and focus on running my business. If you want to be hands off and focus on doing what you do and running your business and doing your thing every day, but you want someone to handle the marketing. This place, I don't know if you can hear the church bell, Bring out your dead. That's all I'm waiting for, is to hear the guy pushing the cart around town every time I hear that bell ring. But this church bell rings every 15 minutes, all day and night. If I lived across the street from that church, I would go absolutely insane, having to listen to these bells every 15 minutes. They're loud. Like if your house is next door to the church, it's going to shake your house every time the bell rings. And I don't know, man. But yeah, what was I saying? If you own a business and you want to focus on running your business, serving your customers, doing the thing that you do, and you don't want to be bothered with having to maintain a website and worry about what's going on with your marketing and all that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out. Like I said, right now you can go to litgood.com and fill out the contact form, and that'll send me an email. And in fact, my email is right in the channel description here on YouTube. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you would have to go to the website or figure it out. litgood.com, go to the contact form. I'm easy to reach. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. So as of yesterday, I have a placeholder website for hardrockbrand.com, but the website domain doesn't point to it. I'm not even going to bother with that until I get it to a point where I'm ready to make it live. I have a placeholder website for my user experience design portfolio. I've got logos for both of those in process. I've got a bunch of other logos and design projects I'm working on. That is in addition to the list of projects I already mentioned. But clients come first when it comes to all this stuff, and things literally took off like a rocket ship in the last couple of weeks. All going back down to that day when I was at Tim Hortons and I had that crazy synchronicity with someone pulling into the parking lot that I didn't want to see and was hoping to never see again. And with all the weird synchronicity surrounding that event, I can honestly say that every day, including that afternoon, and every day since that happened, the synchronicity's just been completely off the charts. And the stories I could tell just about the last 2 weeks would fill 2 or 3 videos if I got into all of it. And so I don't have time for that. I've still got an hour before the library opens, and it looks like we're getting a little break in the rain for now. So I'm gonna probably let you guys go, and so you can get on with your day. I think I'm just gonna go grab a snack. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I gotta kill an hour right now. And I wish the library would open at the same time every day. And the library is going to be closed on Monday for whatever it is, Memorial Day. And so I'm not looking forward to trying to figure out what I'm going to do on Monday. But there are options available. There are more options available right now than there were before. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So the plugs. free.litgood.com is the mailing address or the email list sign up. And if you sign up for that, you'll get an email right back, or you should get an email right back that has a link to download free wallpapers for your cell phones, your tablets, your desktop computers. And if you don't see it come right back, go to your spam folder and check, because a few people have told me that it fell into their spam folder when they got it sent back to them. I'm going to send out, maybe today or tomorrow, another email blast for the deal that I have going on for the photography sales. If you want some fine art to hang on your wall, I got a good price on 4 sunrise and sunset photos as a package deal. So you might want to check that out and sign up for that. And let's see, litgood.com is where it's at right now. That's the best way to get in touch with me. Check out my photography and some other things from there, especially if you want to reach out and have a conversation one-on-one. That's the best way to do it. And let's see, from there, we got the digital chicken bucket, the virtual chicken bucket, which is located at donate.litgood.com. barbershop.com. And once again, as always, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the people that have helped out there over the last 3 months, but especially over the last couple of weeks. It has come in. It has definitely made life a lot easier to do.